Olá! Tudo bom? Hello everyone! Tudo bem com vocês? I'm very happy to be here today in this live class. I decided to teach this class live because I didn't have a video for this week, and I always publish a new video on my YouTube channel every Tuesday. I've been doing that for more than 2 years. For about 2 years, I have more than 100 videos available on my YouTube channel. But this week I didn't have a video, and I decided to come live so we can talk about pronunciation. I talked about pronunciation the last 2 weeks, about the pronunciation of the letter O, the open O and the closed O, and also about the letter E, the open and also closed. So I decided to teach this class also about these two letters, but we are also going to talk about other details, right? These two vowels, they can be pronounced in many different ways in Brazilian Portuguese. So I'd like to talk about that because I received a lot of emails and messages from you, from students, asking more questions about these two letters. So let's talk about that. I'm here to also answer your questions. If you have questions about pronunciation or let's try to focus on pronunciation today, but if you have other questions about Portuguese and if you have time, I can also answer other questions, okay? So I'm going to let me know if you guys can see me and hear me well. I hope so. Tudo bom? Oi, Jacob. Oi, Marcos. Guilherme. Tudo bom? Very good. So I'll be teaching this class mostly in English because this is a beginner level class, and I believe that most of you speak English. Usually I only speak Portuguese in my videos, and then I add 2 subtitles, right, in Portuguese and in English. But since this is a live class and this is going live and on YouTube and also on Instagram, I prefer to speak in English to make sure that everyone understands me, okay? But even if your level of Portuguese is intermediate or advanced, if you still have questions about pronunciation, I believe this class is going to be useful for you, okay? So let's talk about pronunciation of the letters O and E. I'm going to share a blank screen with you so I can write some words. If you are watching me on Instagram, if you want to see this screen, I recommend you go to my YouTube channel. I'm live also on YouTube, so you can see my screen, okay? I cannot share my screen on Instagram. So, okay, sharing my screen. Okay, so I believe you can see that. So let's start talking about the letter O, the letter O. If you have not watched my last video about this topic, I recommend that you watch it. I published 2 weeks ago a video about the letter O. And one other important information is my mini course. I offer a free course in pronunciation. It is a 7-day course. If you have not taken this course yet, I recommend that you do. It is completely free. I talk about the letters O, the letter E, and also many other details about Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. So if you have not taken this course yet, I recommend you do. You'll find it on my website, speakingbrazilian.com. Okay? So let's start talking about, I'm just changing the size of the font and replacing my phone here so you guys can see me well. Okay, so let's start talking about the letter O, a vogal O. This letter can be pronounced in at least 4 different ways. In Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese, the pronunciation of words, of letters in Portugal is a little bit different. So I'm talking specifically about Brazilian Portuguese, okay? So in Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese, we have at least 4 ways, 4 different pronunciations of the letter O. We have the open O, o O aberto. O aberto. We have the closed O, o fechado. We have the nasal O, o nasal. And we have the letter O at the end of words. It's pronounced as a very weak U. So, O at the end of words. No final de palavras. Final de palavras. So now let's see examples of each one of these cases, how to pronounce the letter O in each one of these cases, okay? So o O aberto e o O fechado, the open O and the closed O, are the most difficult ones. For some people, it depends a lot on your native language, right? If your native language is Spanish, this is very, very tricky because we don't have this differentiation in Spanish. Usually, English speakers don't find this too difficult. So it depends a little bit, it depends a lot on your native language, okay? But I'm going to try to help you with this. So, O aberto, to pronounce it, pay attention to the way that I move my mouth. To pronounce it, you have to open your mouth. That's why it is called open O, okay? O, O, O. As in the word avó, as in the word ótimo. Ó, avó, ótimo. The closed O is pronounced with the mouth a little bit closer, much more closed than the open O. So pay attention to my mouth. O, O. So open, O, closed, O. O, O. O, O. Okay? So this is very important. So one exercise that I always recommend to my students is to pay attention, to practice imitation, right? To listen to native speakers and imitate. But you should imitate not only the sound, what you hear, but also if you can see it, if it is a video, also pay attention to the lips and imitate the position of the lips. Okay, this exercise will help you a lot to improve your pronunciation. Okay, if you're just listening, you cannot do that, so you have to try to imitate just listening. But if you can see the person, if you're talking directly to a native speaker, try to pay attention to the way we move our lips and imitate that. Okay, it makes all the difference because the way you position your mouth makes all the difference in the way that the sound goes, the sound is produced. Okay, so let's see examples of words with the closed O. Closed O, we have the word avô, which means grandfather. Avó means grandmother. Avô, grandfather. Okay, so the only difference in pronunciation in these words is the open O or the closed O. Okay, then we have the word, let me see, ônibus. Ônibus. In this word, we actually have the nasal on sound. So even though you see the graphic accent, the circumflex accent, whenever you see the letter O followed by the letter N, you find a nasal sound. Okay, a nasal sound. So I'm going to place this word here. It's a nasal O, as in ônibus, ônibus. And then we have the letter O at the end of words. So this is, in Portuguese, most people in Brazil, most people would pronounce the letter O when you find it at the end of words as a very weak U, U. As in the word that I already mentioned before, ótimo. So the first one is very open, O. The last one is very, very closed. You can almost not hear it. Okay, it's very, very subtle, and it sounds like U, but it's very weak. Okay, ótimo, ótimo. Okay, so these are the variations of pronunciation of the letter O. Let's practice a little bit. Let's do this exercise of imitation. I want you to repeat after me and try to imitate not only the sound, but also pay attention to my lips and repeat after me to practice pronunciation. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to pronounce just one word from each group. Let's start with the open O. Avó, avó, avô, avô, ônibus, ônibus, ótimo, ótimo. So you see that the last O, it sounds like U, and it's very weak. Okay, the nasal sound, it is important that you remember that the air goes through the mouth and the nose at the same time. That's why it is called nasal sound, because it goes, the sound is produced also through the air going through your nose. Okay, so ônibus. If you touch here, you can feel the vibration, okay, of the sound being produced. Ônibus, ônibus. Let's practice one more time these 4 words. Repeat after me. Avó, avó, avô, avô, ônibus, ônibus, ótimo, ótimo. So the letter, the nasal O is a little bit closed too. It's similar to the closed O, but is also nasal. So it is somewhere in the middle. Okay, it is closed and nasal. This can vary a little bit from one accent to another. In Portugal, they also have the open nasal sound. It's on. I don't know how to make it because I'm not very familiar with the Portuguese accent, but I wanted to have in mind that pronunciation in Brazil changes a lot from one place to another, and also pronunciation in Brazilian Portuguese in Brazil is very different from pronunciation in Portugal. Okay, so remember that when you're practicing pronunciation, when you're learning that, you see a lot of differences from one place to another, okay, from one city to another, and especially between Brazil and Portugal. Okay, everything that I'm talking about today, it is more common in the big cities in Brazil, São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. These details that I'm talking about are more from these cities, okay? Okay, guys, do you have any questions so far? I'm gonna take a look at your comments to see if you have questions. If you don't have questions, I'll just continue. I'll move and start talking about the letter E. So Omar is saying o O aberto é mais circular do que o O fechado, ou seja, o outro é mais ovalado. I would say that both the position of the mouth is always like a circle, right? O, O. O, O. The only difference really on the lips is the one is more open and the other one is more closed. Okay? O, 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 O. They are both circular. We have this circle with our mouth. Okay? Omar, muito bom. Let me see. So Arthur is asking, when you're speaking, do you pronounce every letter like in Spanish, or are there silent letters? In Portuguese, we usually don't have silent letters. We pronounce every single letter. However, we do have a lot of reductions, which means sometimes when you're speaking fast, we skip some words. Okay, we skip, not words, I'm sorry, we skip letters. So that happens a lot. It varies a lot depending on the accent, but we usually don't have silent letters in Portuguese. But I'm gonna give you one example of a reduction. Por exemplo, the word você. Você means you, right? You. Você. Many times we pronounce this word as se. Se. We don't have any silent letter here, okay? It's just how we pronounce when we are speaking fast. So, for example, many times when you want to say the phrase, onde você está? Where are you? Onde você está? It is very, very common to hear Brazilians saying, onde? Onde você está? Onde você está? Here we have two reductions, right? The word você is reduced to se, and the verb está is reduced to tá. So the way that I wrote here, it is incorrect. This is only in a spoken language, okay? So when we speak fast, this is very, very common. It is a common reduction. Reductions are common in most languages. We have a lot of reductions in English as well. So this is only when you're speaking fast, we connect words, one word to another, and we have a lot of reductions, okay? So this happens, but usually if you read just one word, if you pronounce it clearly, there are no silent letters. So this was a very good question. Let me see if I can find more questions. So this was from Arthur. Thank you, Arthur. I'm receiving a lot of comments. Thank you guys for participating. I'm sorry I cannot read all the comments and answer all your questions, but I'm trying to read as much as I can so I can choose questions. I'm going to focus on pronunciation, so if your question is about something else, I'm going to choose more questions related to pronunciation, which is the topic of today's class, okay? So Declan is saying that os mineiros curtam muito as palavras. Yes, I think you mean cortam, right? From the verb cut, cortar. Yes, that example that I just gave, it is very, very common in Minas Gerais. In Minas, they do more reductions than in other places in Brazil. That is true. I love accent from Minas Gerais. It's a very beautiful accent. So Manes is asking about how do you compare the E and E compared to French. That is a very good question. Let's talk about the letters E. It is interesting, the letter, I'm going to write it down on the screen so you can make this comparison. Let's talk about the letter E, and then I'm going to go back and read more of your questions, okay? So the letter A, which is A in Portuguese, right? Not in English. It is the letter E. In Portuguese, we have also at least four variations of pronunciation. We have, it is a little bit similar to the letter O. We have the open E, o E aberto. I'm going to write it with an accent to differentiate. Temos o E aberto. We have the closed E, o E fechado. We have the nasal E, which is the E nasal. And we have the letter E at the end of words is usually pronounced as a very weak E em final de palavras. So let's see some examples. So the open E has, for example, in the pronoun ela. Ela means she or her, and it is a very open sound. Ela, ela. And then we have the closed E as in ele. Ele means he or him. Ela, ele. So pay attention to the way that I position my lips so you can practice and imitate, okay? Ela, ele. Ela, ele. So you see that when I pronounce the closed E, my teeth are a little bit more closer to, like the lower part closer to the upper part. Ele, ela, ele, ela. Okay, so this makes all the difference when you are pronouncing this, the open E and the closed E. Then we have the nasal sound. It's usually when it is followed by the letter N or M. We have the nasal N sound, which is also a little bit closed, but it is clearly nasal. Okay, you have the air passing through your mouth and nose at the same time. So we have, as in the word entre. Entre means between. Entre. Entre. If you touch your nose, you see that it vibrates a lot when you say the word entre. If you say just the open it doesn't vibrate at all. If you say it doesn't vibrate at all. But if you say it vibrates a lot because it is a nasal sound. Okay, so this is a good exercise that you can do to check if you are making the nasal sound correctly. Okay, entre. And then we have the E at the end of words, which we already have examples here in these last two examples. We have the letter E at the end. See how I pronounce ele. You see the last E, the last E is very weak, and it sounds like E. Ele, ele, ele. Is weak, is short, sounds like a weak E sound. Okay? Same thing with the word entre. 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 The last vowel is very weak. You see that the first one is strong. Entre is the stress of the word is at the beginning. Entre. I'm gonna give you a different example here. Let's use the word gente. 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 So the E sound is very weak at the end. Okay, so here we have 4 different pronunciations of the letter E. And to ask Manes this question comparing to French, so the E, the open E, is very similar to when you use the chapeau en français. Por exemplo, le verbe être. So when you write, I'm not sure, I'm terrible at writing in French, seriously, without a spell check. So when you say the verb être, that is an open E for my ears. Okay, of course, the perception of sounds changes a lot depending on your nationality, your native tongue. So this is an open E. Être, être, très. Also, when you have the accent, I don't know how you call it, that accent in French. In Portuguese, we call it the grave accent, right? So in the word très, très is also an open E in Portuguese, if you compare to Portuguese, right? Let me think of an example with the closed E. I can't think of one example. Can you give me one example, Manas, of the closed E in French? So these are the open E is very clear in these 2 words that I mentioned. Ok? So Alexandre está perguntando, você é brasileira? Eu sou brasileira. I'm Brazilian, guys. I'm teaching this class in English because I want my students to understand me, even the beginners. But usually I teach my classes in Portuguese most of the time. Okay, I only teach in English when when it's a class for beginner level students, and if I don't have the opportunity to add subtitles, which is this case. Okay. Okay. Chapeau. Oui. Okay, Michelle. Muito bom, gente. Let me see if I have more questions here. So Max is asking, the E nasal pode ser aberto ou fechado também, ou só fechado? It is usually closed, but I think it can be open too, the nasal E sound. To me, it is always like, it is a very clear nasal sound, so I wouldn't worry too much about that if it is open or closed. It is not important, because at least in Brazil, it is a very clear nasal sound, which sounds like this. Entre. Okay, it is, to me, it's not very close or open. It's like in the middle. It is clearly nasal though. But these details, they change a little bit from one place to another, one region to another, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna read more of your comments. So Jacob is asking, a letra O no verbo gostar é aberto ou fechado? Gostar, gostar. It is more closed. That could change a little bit from depending on the accent, but usually verbs, these verbs that have the letter O in the second to last syllable, they are usually closed, like comer. I'm gonna give you some examples. Comer, gostar. So it is closed. Comer, gostar. Okay, it is O. But that could change a little bit. Usually people from the north of Brazil, they have a tendency to open the O's, so that could change a little bit, okay, from one place to another. Looking for more comments, guys. So I have a very good question here from Omar. Nos casos nos quais o O não tem nenhum acento, como você pronunciaria by default? Fechado ou aberto? So this is a difficult question because unfortunately there is not a simple rule about that. I recommend you watch my video that I published 2 weeks ago here on YouTube. I give you a lot of tips on how to understand how to pronounce the letter O when there is no graphic accent. Usually there is no default. So in the south and southeast, the default would be closed. In the northeast, the default would be open. But there are many details. For instance, there are usually words in the singular form have a closed, are pronounced with the closed O, like in the word ovo. Ovo, closed, ovo, ovo. But then when you say the plural is ovos, it is open. So ovos, ovos. That happens with a lot of words. However, this is not a rule. This doesn't happen with all the words. So it is very tricky. Unfortunately, there is not a simple rule when it comes when words are pronounced, how the letter O is pronounced when there is no accent. What I recommend is that the more you listen to Portuguese, the easier it gets, because you get used to these variations and you just get used to the way that the words are pronounced. And also don't worry too much, because if you pronounce a little bit open or closed, it's not gonna be a problem. You won't have a problem of communication, okay? Because people will understand you anyway if you pronounce a little bit off the O, open O or the closed O. It is very rare to really have a problem with this, unless you have like two similar words and there is only one difference, which is the open O and closed O. So in this case, it is important to get it right. In all the other cases, it is totally fine if you pronounce the closed or open. It is not that important, so don't stress with that. Okay, you'll learn with a lot of practice. So ovo, ovos. Let's practice that. You guys would like to repeat after me? Ovo, ovo, closed, and then more closed, right? The last one is very close. Sounds like a weak U. Ovo, and then ovos, ovos, open and closed. Ovos. Ovos. Ok? Very good. Como você pronuncia si? Si. This is the pronunciation. Usually words that there are usually the letter E at the end of words, or if it is just like one syllable word, very short word as in the word see, the pronunciation is a very weak E, si. This word is usually, it is a pronoun, it is usually used together with verbs, and it is usually pronounced very fast, quickly. So it is si, and it is usually very weak and fast. I'm going to give you a sentence, por exemplo. Você... this is a good vocabulary for you. Divirta-se. So divirta-se means have fun. This verb to have fun, divertir-se, is always reflexive. So we have to use this pronoun, which is a reflexive pronoun. Divirta-se. Divirta-se. See, the C is very weak and fast. Divirta-se. Você se divertiu? Did you have fun? Você se divertiu? Você se divertiu? Você se divertiu? It's fast, you see? So it sounds like see, but it is fast. Muito bom. So Zainab, when you said ovo, the O at the end didn't really sound like a weak U. It is U, ovo. Ovo. It is a weak U. Very, very weak and fast. Ovo. Ovo. Muito bom. Looking for more questions, guys. Thank you so much for sending your questions. This way I can help you. Muito bom, muito bom. So Lina is asking, oi Lina. Virginia, responde minha pergunta, por favor. Pode pronunciar as palavras grandmother and grandfather em português? Eu nunca consigo diferenciar por causa do acento. Yeah, I did pronounce this in the beginning of this class. I'm gonna do that again for you, no problem. And I also recommend you watch my video specifically about open O and closed O. I published this video 2 weeks ago. Okay, you find it on my YouTube channel. So let's go back to the open O and closed O. So repeat after me, guys. This is never too much, right? This is always important to practice. So first the open and then the close. Avó, avó, avô, avô, avó, avô. So one tip that I'm going to give you a different tip now that I haven't said before. So one tip is to pronounce the open O as an open A. For example, you could say avá, avá. And then try to close it a little bit. Avá, avó. So try to say the letter A, with the position with the O, okay? Avó, avó. So you probably will get a similar, you get closer to the open O, okay? So and the same thing we could do with the closed O, but here you're going to pronounce avu, u. Avu, avu, and then try to open a little bit. Avu, avô, avô, and then try to pronounce the letter O with the mouth of the letter U. So that can help you to get the open O and the closed O, okay? Because the position of the mouth is very, very important, okay? I hope that helps. So let me see, more comments, more questions. Very good question. Victor, is the O in the number 9 open or closed? It is open. 9. So I'm gonna write it here. 9. But the other numbers with the letter 9, they are usually closed. Oops. So I have 9, 90. This one, 90 or 90, depends on the accent. So some people would say 90 and some people would say 90. But I believe the most common here would be closed, 90. But the 9, I think, is always open, okay? 9 means 9. 9. Okay, guys, looking for more questions related to pronunciation. Okay, so here, this question is interesting. It's Lee. I love your creative names. So sometimes I'm confused when to pronounce the R, such as in porquê or porquê. Both ways are correct. So the answer is, in Portuguese, we also have many different ways to pronounce the letter R in Portuguese. And especially at the end of syllables, which is this case. So porquê is a word with 2 syllables. Por, que. At the end of syllables, the R can be pronounced in at least 3 different ways. It can sound like the American H, porque, porque. This is a common accent in Rio de Janeiro, in many places in the north and northeast. Porque, porque, porque. Another common pronunciation is the R, the fricative R, which is similar to the Spanish R and the Italian R. R. Porque, 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 porque. This accent is common in São Paulo, in the south of Brazil, and other places. And we have a different R, which is the R that we call retroflex R in Portuguese, which is similar to the American R, this R that I'm pronouncing right now. So you could say porque, porque, porque. So this accent is more specific from a region in Brazil, some cities outside São Paulo, in the state of São Paulo, and some cities in the state of Paraná, people pronounce the R like this. So this is a more specific accent from this region. Okay, so these 3 pronunciations are correct and they are common. Okay, so I recommend that you just choose the best, the easiest one for you, or imitate your friends. If you have friends from São Paulo, I think it would be nice to try to speak like them, or from Rio, try to speak like them. So this is my recommendation for you. Don't stress about the R in Portuguese. There are many, many variations. All these examples that I gave you are just variations in accent, okay? Very good questions, guys. So Jacob, you're asking about, yeah, sometimes we have the open E in feminine words and the closed E in masculine words. Unfortunately, that's not a rule that works all the time. That works well with pronouns. So feminine pronouns are with the open E and masculine pronouns with the closed E. That rule doesn't work with other words. So no. So the word preto, preta both have closed pronunciation. Preto, preta. Both are closed, okay? And the word amarelo, amarela, both are open. Amarelo, amarela, amarelo, amarela, okay? So, yeah, so in this rule doesn't work in other contexts. It's more related to pronouns. Very good question, Jacob. Muito bom, guys. Thank you so much for all your questions. This is amazing. Muito bom. So Will is asking quando será a próxima aula online. And I'm not sure when I'll teach live again, Will. But if I recommend that you follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also turn on notifications. So whenever I schedule a new live, you receive a notification so you can join me, okay? But I'll have certainly new live classes coming up in October. I'm not sure in September. I'll be traveling, so I think I won't be teaching live classes in September, but certainly in October, okay? And I'll be publishing new videos, of course, as always, every week. So I guess that's it for today, guys. I hope this was useful. If you have not taken my free mini course yet in pronunciation, I recommend you do. You have 7 lessons. You learn the alphabet. This is where you're learning my mini course in pronunciation. You learn the alphabet, the letters E and O, the letters R and S, letters T and D, all the details about these lessons, specifically when speaking Brazilian Portuguese. My mini course is 100% free. So you can just sign up, just go to my website, speakingbrazilian.com, and sign up. And also, you also have access to downloadable materials, so you can have the print out the material if you want, and a lot of exercises. So I highly recommend you take my free mini course. Okay, so this is a good starting point to studying with me. And if you're interested in having more classes with me, I'll have new classes starting in November. So you can add your name to the waiting list if you're interested. You find the waiting list on my website too, is school.speakingbrazilian.com. You'll find all my courses, so you can add your name to the waiting list. Okay, guys, it was lovely to see you today, and I'll see you next time. I'll be, if you have not joined my Facebook group yet, I teach live Q&A every week. Who asked for live classes a few minutes ago? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. So if you have not joined my Facebook group yet, that is a good place to have access to me every week. Okay, so every week I teach a live Q&A on my Facebook group and also on Instagram. So it is not a long class, but it is an opportunity for you to learn more and also ask me questions. I'm also always available to answer your questions. Okay, guys, so I'll see you soon. Beijo, feliz terça-feira e nos vemos em breve. Tchau, tchau!